Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever around the world. My name is Keegan, and welcome to this podcast slash YouTube series all about the Gold Coast Suns. It is named Pod of the Rising Sun. I know, great name. I am an absolutely creative genius. You can tell I work in marketing. So all this is basically about me doing a series on the Gold Coast Suns. Now, I live in Melbourne, so I hear a lot of bits and pieces about the Suns. Basically, just most people just don't rate us. And to be fair, we haven't given them a lot of opportunity to rate us in the past couple of seasons. So I'm not too bothered by that. What I am bothered by is just how dismissive some people are of us at 3-1 wins. So 3 wins, 1 loss. We've got the same record as teams like St Kilda and Brisbane, who don't get denounced. Now, Brisbane are a lot better than us. St Kilda, I reckon we're not far away from. But those teams don't get denounced like us. We get denounced like we are the plague. And I understand our history doesn't allow us to develop a lot of confidence. But hopefully through this series, you're going to get the opinion of a Gold Coast Suns fan and how I think we're getting on. Now, if you're listening, you're either a Gold Coast Suns fan, a diehard like me. You're either someone that's followed my Supercoach videos in the past, and just a quick sidebar, I will be getting back to those. Or you are just a diehard that needs to listen to every piece of AFL media out there. And let me tell you, you're in for an absolute treat. So this week is just going to be quickly looking back at the first 3 weeks, and then talking about how we've played, and then give you, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to have weekly votes, and we're going to find who the Pod of the Rising Sun medalist is at the end of the season. Who is our best player for the season according to me, and there'll be some sort of trophy or medal, or even just a Twitter post about who I think the winner is. So what I've noticed, just starting off the top for the Suns, what I've noticed with how we've been getting on and how we've been playing is very different to last year. We seem a lot harder to beat this year, like to the point that we look really hard to break down. We've got one, I think from last time I checked, we've got the 3rd best defence in the league. Now that could come down to the opponents we've played not being heavily scoring teams. But the way we've set up and the way we've set up our team has been really, really good. Now, I draw comparisons to how Paul Roos had set up his team back in the days that he was thinking Melbourne. He first set out to make that team hard to beat, and that is what the Suns are doing at the moment. Dewey is setting us up as a hard to beat team. He basically looks to not flood, but very close to flood the back line, and then get the ball in the back line and run it out with the likes of Harbrow, Hanley, Weller, and then kick it, almost kick it over the top to the likes of Sexton running onto it, and then we can get a goal that way. And then if that doesn't work, we have to go a bit slower. We're looking to the likes of Peter Wright, looking to the likes of Chris Burgess, who's been a good pickup this year, as players just hit up in the forward 50, make a contest, get another stoppage, and then try and just keep it locked in until we can get the goal and go back to the middle. So we're being set up very hard to beat. Now that obviously means for the neutral, we're not playing attractive football as we might have in the past, maybe under a Guy McKenna, where we had all this talent in the world running through the middle into the forward line and playing good, exciting football. We're not doing that. Dew is setting us up to win, and the coaching staff is setting us up to stay in the contest as long as possible and try and pinch the contest at the end. That's probably why we've had so many close games. And over the first 4 rounds, we've had the lowest margins in our first 4 games that anyone else has ever had in the history of the AFL, which is an absolutely amazing stat. We've had 4 really close games, and they're just they're cardiac kids. They're going to give you a heart attack one day. But as a Suns fan, as someone that probably has seen this team get absolutely hammered from pillar to post, I'm happy with the way it's going. I can't complain with how we're playing, because the way we're playing is we're not playing amazing, free-flowing, high-scoring football, but we're not being beaten, and we're competing. And looking at last year and looking at all the talent that has left the club, I could not be happier. Speaking of, that's a good segue. Speaking of players that have left the club, it was such a good idea for Dew to basically go clean the slate, start again. Players like players like May, players like Lynch, players like Hall, are players that were on our list but didn't want to be there. And why should we have them in our list on our list when we don't want them there? So I think, just as a bit of a side note, that was such a smart move from the club to create that culture of people that want to be at the club, that want to fight for the club. And new captain, a captain in Swallow, who honestly, Swallow and Wits, who will definitely in Swallow's case, because he's been there since the start, he should have been the captain earlier on. He's a bloke that, he's not the loudest leader. He's not the one that yells and gets the team behind him through his voice, but his actions, the way he soldiers on, the way he fights for the team, the way that he puts his head over the pill and gets it forward. And that's all I can really ask for from a captain. He tries hard. He's never going to be a Nat Fyfe or a Dangerfield who has silky skills, who explodes away from the pack. He could have been that in the past, but injuries have just curtailed him. But he gets in, he scraps, he fights hard, he'll get his 30 touches. And this year he's actually showed he can go forward and kick a goal too. So that's great. He's kicked 5 goals this year. So I'm pretty happy with the way that that's happened. And the team looks a lot more cohesive and looks a lot more invested. And I'm happy, and I'm liking the path that this team is taking, as opposed to previous years under Eade and under McKenna at times as well. So, I'm liking the way we're playing. I'm liking the players we got in. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to give you my votes for the first 3 rounds. I'm going to have a quick talk about the Carlton game, how we got on, give you the votes for that game, and then we're going to look forward to Adelaide this week. So for St Kilda, I gave 3 votes to Sexton because he kicked 4 goals. He was our best player that day. Looked absolutely amazing against St Kilda. I gave 2 votes to Fiorini because why not? Because he has been absolutely amazing this season, and he's probably one of our most improved players. And then I gave 1 to Swallow because that captaincy, he injured himself probably, I think it was halfway through the 3rd quarter. He went to the goal square and he kicked 3 goals for us from the full forward position. If a Dustin Martin or a Patrick Dangerfield did that on one leg, the league would be ranting and raving about how much of a great captain or how much of a great leader that person is. But Swallow does it. He does it quietly. He does it excellently, and that's all you can ask for from the captain. So we lost that game by a point. I actually went to that game. It was heartbreaking, but that's just the way it goes. Round 2, we got our first win against Fremantle by 2 points, I think it was. I gave 3 votes to Harbrow that game because he, just rebounding off halfback, his kicking is so much better this year. And at 30, nearly 31, he's been one that stuck it out through the thick and thin. And at the end of his career, I could definitely see him having a medal or something named after him at the club because he's been there from the start and he's been such a good leader. He's had probably 1 or 2 off-field issues that he's probably not proud of, that he's learned from, that hopefully means that as he gets towards the end of his career, he can impart some more leadership and some more wisdom on those younger players, especially those younger Indigenous players that we have at our team. 2 votes to Sexton. He had 4 goals, 5 this game, so he really should have. Done better. He could have had 7 or 8 goals against Fremantle, but he only kicked the 4. Very inaccurate, but I maintain he's the best snap in the AFL. And the 1 vote I gave to Swallow again, because why not? Again, another good captaincy performance. He's just been absolutely amazing for us. Round 3 against the Bulldogs, absolutely smashed it. So happy. We won by 5 points, thanks to, I think it was Ed Gowers for Dogs missing right at the end, and we managed to hold on by the skin of our teeth. But we held on, that's the main thing. For this game, I gave 3 votes to Fiorini. With that, I gave 2 votes to Weller. I thought that was his best game for the club. He had 25 touches, and he does something a lot of our team can't do. He's got a great kick. Our team is tough, they're hard, but their kicking isn't their best, isn't their strong suit. So he definitely brings something to the club that we don't have. And I gave the 1 vote in the Bulldogs game to Sexton, who has been inconsistent all the way through. And yeah, so they're the first 3 games. So the first 3 rounds, we've competed well. We've fought in. We've dug in hard. So hopefully that's something we can continue to do in the future. So you've probably heard me mention the 3 games, and through those first 4 games, including the Carlton game, there's one thing that I've sort of noticed with those games, and that is our midfield, and preferably our starting midfield four. So obviously, you've got Swallow, who I've talked about, and let's start with Swallow. I've got FootyWire, great website if you want to look at stats or anything, all collated. It's really, really good. It's really, really handy. So that's what I've got open in front of me at the moment with those five. The five players I'm going to talk about, or the four players I'm going to talk about, are Swallow, Fiorini, Miller, and Bowes. There are four probably our top midfielders. And then you've got others like Miles and Hall and Smith you can go through. But I just want to focus on these four because these four have been at the Gold Coast their entire careers. They're the four that I really think have got this, who are at a great level or could get to a great level. So talking about Swallow early on, I probably already talked about him a fair bit. He is currently... He has, so far this season, 4 games in, he's averaging nearly 22 touches. He's kicked 6 goals already this season, which is great for a midfielder. That's something we haven't had a lot of since Ablett has left, is goal-kicking midfielders. So he's doing that. He can show that he can go forward. He can sit in the goal square and he can take a mark or two, which is great. Great leadership, and he tackles as well too. Well, he used to tackle a lot more. He's averaging just under 3 tackles a season, but he is definitely a leader that I'm really, really satisfied with and I'm really, really happy with. Moving on to one of the vice captains, which would be Tuke Miller, who has raised his game to another level this year. I reckon he is just about... I know I said Fiorini was one of the most improved, but Miller's right there with him. Nearly 25 disposals this season, absolutely amazing. Averaging over 7 tackles a game, which is huge for us. He doesn't have electric pace. He's not an amazing kick, but what he does do, he does tackle hard. He does get in and mix it up, and he is able to tag as well, which he's done in the past with the likes of Zorko for the Lions in those games. He's done a good job of tagging, and I think that he will be, once Swallow finishes up, or once Swallow gets to a point where he wants to pass the captaincy on, Miller is definitely that next captain, and he will be a captain that the players in the club can definitely get behind. He's in his 5th season now. He's starting to really put it together, and I'm so happy. Hopefully that means that he has a really good year as well. So the next one we'll go to is Fiorini. Fiorini he's probably our most prolific midfielder, and he's only 21 years old. Now, I'm going to read you some numbers, and if any 21-year-old in Melbourne was doing this, they would be getting talked about hugely, and they probably are getting talked about hugely. So, for instance, he currently averages over 17 kicks a game. He averages over 10 handballs a game. He averages 28 disposals. He's 6th in the league so far for goal assists. He's not, and again, he's like the Miller type. I think his skills are a bit better than Miller's, but I think that he gets the ball a lot more. He's good around the clearances. Same with Miller. So Miller and Fiorini probably play very similar games, but he's someone that 21 years old, he could be anything by the time he's 24, 25, hitting his peak. He's getting 28 disposals now. Hopefully he can start averaging over the 30 touches a game, and then that's when he really hits his stripes. And hopefully he hasn't kicked any goals yet this season. That's probably the one thing that he could probably start doing a bit more, is kicking goals. He's 186 centimetres, so he's not a short midfielder like Miller. Miller's only 178. Fiorini's 186, so he's a bit taller. Hopefully he can add goal kicking to those skills, and then hopefully that means going forward that he will be a key player for us. And the last one I want to talk about, if I'm talking about midfielders this week, is Jack Bowes. Now, Bowes could be anything. He's the one to play in our team that could be anything. He's 187, he's 82 kilos, so he's got a good size about him. He's currently this season averaging 23 touches, and he's kicked a couple of goals as well. But I'm going to get to the Carlton game in a bit, but he's the one that I think could develop into the best player out of a lot of them. He's got all the tools. He's pretty quick. He's a good mark. He's a good kick, and he can find the goals when he needs to as well. As the stats don't really say that he's only kicked 8 goals in his career, but there's games when he's looked really threatening in the forward line. So he is someone that I think will be the best player out of the 4 that I've mentioned, and he's someone that definitely is worth watching heading forward. All right, so they're the four midfielders I want to focus on. That's going to be the nucleus of our team going forward, and that is who I hope that this Gold Coast Suns, Stuart Dew, build the midfield around. You've got the likes of Miles and Hall and Smith in there as well, and Darcy McPherson, who can rotate through there as well. And they're good supporting acts, but those four, Bose, Miller, Fiorini and Swallow, are like our Fab Four. Now, don't get silly. They're nowhere near the Brisbane Fab Four, obviously. That team won 3 premierships on it. But this is the 4 players that I think we could build this midfield around. Tough, hard players, and in Bo's case, definitely very skilled. So, going on to our round four this week against Carlton, it was an absolutely ugly game. No doubts about it. It was awful. And looking at some of the disposal efficiency of some of the players that we had, Miller had 61% disposal efficiency, Fiorini had 63%, Jack Martin had 63%. There was some absolutely all over the shop. There was a lot of issues, but we fought it out and we struggled and we got the win in the end. And Carlton are not as bad as 0-4. They've had patches where they've looked all right, and I'm probably just saying it to up my team a bit so our win looks a bit better. But I don't think that Carlton are anywhere near. I don't know. They're not great, and that's fine, but they're working towards, like, Patrick Cripps is an absolute animal. I wish we had someone like Patrick Cripps in our team, and we might still, someone might develop into our Patrick Cripps. But at the moment, he's just an absolute animal, and he's dragging that Carlton team all by himself on his back. So if we're just looking at the score was Suns 8 goals, 11.59. Again, our goal kicking is something that we have issues with. Peter Wright missed so many. He missed a couple of very easy shots. He could have had 3 or 4 goals this game. That one he dropped over the line from Sexton late in the last quarter was just almost killer. As soon as he did that, my head went down. I thought he'd absolutely lost that for us. But credit to him, he actually got the handball to Bose right at the end for Bose to kick that amazing goal. So I'm not too worried. So Gold Coast were 8-11-59. Carlton were 8 goals, 9-57. So we just snuck over the line. And yeah, there's not much really more to pull out of this game. It was an absolutely messy, scrappy game. For some reason, Carlton kept kicking it to Gibbons, who's 175. He's a really short midfielder playing in the forward line. They had their 4 tall forwards that we covered pretty well. Collins, Homch, who injured his elbow early, who stuck with it. Ballard, and Burgess eventually ended up going back as well. They covered them really well, and we defended those tall players really well. Collins and Homch have been 2 of the best pickups for this team. Just solidifying that defence, especially with Rory Thompson going down with his knee for the year. Those 2 have done so well to fortify that defence and to hold that defence together that I've been really impressed with those 2. And just another quick mention was Murdoch. It was probably Murdoch's best game for us. He's played 4 games for us at the moment. He has at times looked a bit sort of all over the shop, like not hitting his targets correct with his kicks, but this game he looked really good. He took some really, really important marks in the back line, and he looked really, really assured coming out of defence. So just going to give Murdoch a special mention because I think that he had his best game for us, and hopefully can keep that form going forward. Holman's another one, kicked 2 very important goals, scraps in the forward line really well, and he's one that is going to keep performing to stay in this team because the likes of Rankin are going to be coming back soon. And Rankin is definitely, I don't know, I think Nick Holman would probably hate me saying this. Rankin's definitely a more skilled player than Nick Holman, but what Nick Holman does is he tackles hard and he can take a mark. He can take a decent mark, Nick Holman. So, and he can kick a goal. So he's going to be wanting to stay in this team. So he's going to tackle hard and he's going to put on that pressure up the forward line, which is exactly what we want. And yeah, not much more to say really. It was a scrappy, ugly game, but we got there in the end, which is great to see. Alright, so with that out of the way, we're going to look forward to this week. We have got, on Sunday afternoon, we have got the Adelaide Crows. Now, the Crows they're currently 1 win, 3 losses with their one win. I can't even remember who they beat now. 2 in the comments below. Who did Adelaide win? I can't remember off the top of my head. who did Adelaide beat? But they recently lost to North Melbourne last week, and they look slow, and they didn't look like the Adelaide of 2017. That Adelaide that were absolutely so on top of it. They were probably the best team in the league, but Richmond obviously won in the end. So you can't. They were obviously the best team of the year, but over the entire period, I think Adelaide were one of the best performed teams, and they've just seemed to have lost that, which is good for us because we have never, they've got a 100% record over us. We've never beaten Adelaide. That's the last team that the Suns need to beat. And 9 years in, that's probably not a good thing to hear, but this week is our best chance to do it. And I'll give you the honest opinion now, I don't think we'll win. I don't think we'll beat Adelaide. I reckon we'll end up losing by 3 or 4 goals. But this is our best chance that we've had of beating Adelaide. And this Adelaide team is not looking their dominant best. They've got issues. They've got injuries. They're just looking a bit lethargic. They're not moving the ball as well as they could. So hopefully that means for us, that gives us a good chance. Another good news that came out today, just before I started recording, was Sam Jacobs. Their number one ruckman is out injured, which would give Witts a lot of chance to dominate the ruck, which he does. He's got the most hitouts in the league this season, but what he just doesn't. He doesn't do. I don't think he does enough with the hitouts, and that's not just. And he's been a great ruckman for us this season now, co-captain. I'm so glad we have him because it's good to have a ruckman that can physically dominate. But I just feel he needs to do a bit more with those taps. And this week he's going to be against the Crouch brothers, and Sloan is sort of the main 3 midfielders the Crows have. And he needs to be able to make sure that he hits our likes of Miller or Fiorini or Swallow or Bowes or Miles or whoever's in the midfield. He needs to make sure he hits them with his taps to give us the first opportunity to score. So that's a big out for us. And I reckon we're within a chance. Definitely got a chance. But I'd be reckoning the Crows were going to win by 4 goals. But I don't live without hope. I forgot. Later on, I forgot to give the votes for the Carlton game. So quickly I'm going to do that now, and then I'll read you the scoreboard of who I think is the pod of the Rising Suns winner so far. So I gave 3 votes to Miller because he had an amazing game. He laid 15 tackles, and that's what a future leader should be doing, which was great. I gave 2 votes to Fiorini, and then I gave 1 vote to Swallow, Mr. Consistency. So far on our medal, or on our pod of the Rising Suns medal, Fiorini has 7 votes. He's currently leading 4 rounds in. We've got Sexton is second with 6, and then I've got Swallow, Harbrow, and Miller on 3, and I've got Weller on 2. So hopefully this week we can add a few more people to that name list. Hopefully that we get over Adelaide. Fingers crossed. If we get to 4-1, then people have to start taking the Suns a bit more seriously. And I can't wait to hear people, especially people in Melbourne where I live, take the Suns a little bit more seriously. Anyway, guys, thank you for listening. I hope that this is new to me. Hopefully, in a couple of weeks too, I might get people on to speak to. I've got friends that really follow the Suns, and why they not be A+ or superstar guests. It's probably a bit more interesting if you hear 2 people having a conversation and a discourse. So next few weeks, I'm going to look to do that and get other people involved. But just for today, hope that you haven't minded this 20 or so minutes. I think about 20 minutes of me just rambling on about the Suns. I hope you enjoyed. Make sure you do like this video on YouTube. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the episodes of Pod of the Rising Suns and the Supercoach series, which I am going to get to again because I do love it. Make sure you don't miss any of that. I hope you enjoyed, guys. Thank you for listening, and I'll speak to you soon.